Good morning, and thank you for joining me here for Global Entrepreneurs on KWAI 1080 Radio. I'm Tina Quizon, and I will be your host as I interview leaders in different sectors of business, economics, education, and technology who will share their success and insights into Hawaii and our global world. All right, good morning, and thank you for joining me here. We have with us on the phone today from the West Coast, Tina Seelig, and she's from the Stanford Technology Venture Program at Stanford University. She's the executive director, and she's an entrepreneur in her own with many books and articles in Scientific America, and we have her here today. She's dedicated to accelerating the high technology entrepreneurship education, not only for Stanford students, but it's amazing how they've created so much scholarly research on technology that really helps other firms. You can go to their e-corner and hear all the great interviews. And so I asked her here to share about all the different ways that Stanford is providing students with the skills necessary to bring their innovation and to solve so many of our world problems, which is so important today. So, good morning, Tina.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Now, you're up on the West Coast?
I'm in California and just south of San Francisco in Palo Alto.
And thank you for joining us. I know we wanted to have you on the show, but you were actually down in, was it Chile a few weeks ago?
Chile, yeah. I was there for 6 weeks over the last month, which was a month or two, and it was amazing.
And it's amazing how you get to travel and see the different economic growth in different areas. And so I really wanted to get some of your insight. And I noticed that you actually have, your background is in medical science. So give us a little bit of a background, because now you're doing the Entrepreneurship Center. And so what led you on this path?
Yeah, it's a very interesting story, and I'll give it to you very quickly, and we can dive into any pieces that are particularly interesting to you. But I did actually my PhD in neuroscience at Stanford Medical School. And, of course, now I teach entrepreneurship to engineers, and that path has been somewhat interesting. As I said, I started out as a neuroscientist, but I was really interested in how do you get the ideas out of the lab and into the real world. And that stimulated my interest in entrepreneurship. And so I moved from the laboratory into the business world. I was a management consultant at Booz Allen. I was an entrepreneur. I started a company. I've written a whole bunch of books. I was working at Compaq as a multimedia producer, and I used to change careers every couple of years whether I needed to or not, but I've been at Stanford now for 10 years, and I couldn't be happier. It is one of the most stimulating and exciting environments one could imagine.
And I think one of the things that really impressed me is that you're able to see so many of the drivers of change, you know, whether it's in career or business, and it's so visible and really on the forefront of what people are talking about, that you see a lot of the major life transitions. So whether people are transitioning, graduating from school, or they're leaving, you know, obsolete jobs and industries. And then, you know, we see a lot of people that aren't retiring that, you know, perhaps decades ago would have considered retirement at the age they are right now, that are staying and continuing their careers. Or, you know, some people are being laid off, and you know, so many different things in the community, and people are more aware about major transitions. So I wanted you to see and offer your suggestions. You know, how can someone, when they're having these events, you know, a major life transition, how can you see that as an opportunity?
Right. And I don't know if you mentioned in the intro, but I recently wrote a book that just came out a couple months ago called What I Wish I Knew When I Was 20. And it was essentially the collection of all the thoughts I had about this topic, about how do you think of your life as opportunity-rich, even when problems present themselves. And this is what I teach in my courses. I teach a course on creativity and innovation. And the whole theme of the course is that problems are opportunities, and I give the students problems. They start out small and get bigger and bigger and bigger until they get very comfortable taking on challenges that are around them. The things that I teach are about how do you look at the world as opportunity-rich and figure out how to turn those problems into opportunities. by challenging assumptions, by breaking the rules, by making your own luck, and being willing to take some risks that other people might not be comfortable taking.
And so you had actually said that the old rules really don't seem to apply. So what do you see as sort of the new model?
The thing is that we often thought, when I was growing up, that you stayed on a very firm path and you did the same thing for many, many years. Well, now we know that people change careers very, very often. And the world is as big as you want it to be. You don't have to be limited by the choices that are right in front of you. You can look around and see incredible numbers of opportunities that are way beyond those that seem instantly obvious.
Yeah, and what I love is you talk about that there's actually some secret formulas you can follow, because it's important to really discover what kind of business you want to create. And so can you talk a little bit, how does someone sort of find their niche? What's the creative thinking and what's that mindset you need to have?
Sure. That's really not a secret, and I think that everybody can do it very easily. One of the things that people often tell you to do is to follow your passions. And that might be well and good, but it often isn't enough. You need to also know what you're really good at and what the market is. I mean, if you think about it, if you're passionate about something but you're not good at it, you might be a great fan. I mean, for example, I might be passionate about music, but maybe I can't carry a tune or I don't really have any skills in that area. I can go to concerts, I can buy music, I can be part of the audience. And that's a terrific thing to do. If I'm really good at something but I'm not passionate about it, that's a job. Most people live in that place where they go to work and they get up and they live for the weekends because their job is something that allows them to put, food on the table, but it really doesn't make them feel as though it resonates with them. But if you can find the spot where your passions, your interests, and the market overlap, that's a terrific place to be. That's a real career where you often feel as though, I can't believe people are paying me to do this. I would pay someone to allow me to do this every single day.
So it's really finding the inspiration that brings a value to the marketplace?
Well, it's about understanding where the opportunities are and how you can bring your specific skills to that. I often look at, what am I uniquely qualified to do? And as you get more and more experience, and here's the thing, you need to try lots of things and keep what works. If you think about it, as a kid or going through college, you're only exposed to a certain number of opportunities, and the world of possibilities is much, much broader than that. So you should try lots of things, see what things resonate, see what works, see what things you do really well, and that will lead you to the next step. One of the things I have my students do is to write failure resumes. And those are resumes with all their biggest screw-ups, personal, professional, and academic. Uh-huh. And the idea is it's all right to fail as long as you learn something from it. And failure is, the sort of the secret sauce of Silicon Valley. If you look at the venture capitalists in the area, 80% of the companies they invest in don't succeed. But they know that the 20% that do are going to make it worthwhile. In fact, if you aren't failing sometimes, you probably aren't taking enough risks. You're probably not trying enough things that are new and are going to challenge the things that you've already done before.
And I think that's a really important point that you're making, that it's perfectly acceptable to have some failures, because it's that recognition of the failure and then recovering from the failure that if you look back, so what you're saying is the really successful people, it didn't happen overnight and there was a lot of bumps on the road.
Well, there are always challenges along the way, and the key is to learn from them, to learn from your failures. And, as some of my colleagues say, it's failing fast forward. You fail forward instead of backwards. When you fail, you get up and you say, okay, I won't do that again. And if you think about it, when we hire people who have experience, we do that not just because of their successes, but also because of their failures. We know that they won't make those same mistakes. I mean, we often talk about, that's a rookie mistake. Well, it's something that people often make the same mistakes when they start out, but people who are experienced know not to fall into those, pits.
Well, and you brought out a good point, people with experience. So how important is it nowadays to network and find the resources of others so that you sort of speed up that learning curve of failure?
Sure. I mean, having a strong and powerful network is incredibly valuable. And that network can be formed in a lot of different ways. One of the things that's wonderful about the United States is that we don't have the same sort of social stratification that happens in a lot of other parts of the world. So it's pretty easy to get access to people who are doing lots of different things at different levels of organizations. Think about it. You go sit at the baseball game watching your kid play, and the parents probably come from all different walks of life. Use that as an opportunity to get to know them, to learn from them, and, that becomes just an easy way to start building your network, just in your everyday life.
And sometimes the advice is what I find that, like you said, you might have a resource here at the baseball game, someone that has some background, and that advice sometimes really is some of the best things to have those resources. And a lot of times what I see with entrepreneurs is we're not always looking at our total resources.
Right. There are always resources that are around you. There's an exercise I do, and it's actually the first story I tell in my book, which is, as I mentioned before, is, what I wish I knew when I was 20, is about an exercise I do with my students where I give them $5 and 2 hours. And I tell them they have 2 hours to make as much money as possible, starting with that $5. Well, what ends up happening is the teams who actually are the most successful are those that don't use the $5 at all, because they realize that $5 is actually almost essentially nothing, and that their skills and the opportunities around them are worth much, much more. So they look around and find that in every place and time there is something they could do to create some value. They're the teams that set up a stand in the middle of campus where they offer to measure students' bicycle tire pressure for free. And if it needs air, they'll pump it up for $1. Well, it turned out that every student needed air in their tires. Or the team that decided that in Palo Alto, our community here, there were long lines on Saturday night at the restaurants. So they made reservations at all the most popular restaurants, and as those times came up, they sold them. So they found that there should never be a moment where they look around and say there's no opportunities, because all they have to do is pay attention and see them right in front of them.